Hello everyone, bonjour. Thank you so much for coming along today to this panel on Reinventing an Iconic Hotel. My name's Cara, I'm the editorial assistant at Sleeper Media. We're the publishers of hospitality design magazine Sleeper, which hopefully you're familiar with. We also publish Supper, which is a hotel food and beverage magazine, and Starboard, which looks at mobile hospitality. We're also the organisers of the Ahead Hospitality Awards, which again, hopefully you are familiar with. Both of our panellists today were behind projects that were victorious at Ahead Europe in 2023 and also shortlisted in our global top 10 hotel openings of 2023, which I'm sure they're going to tell you about more now. So I have with me today Tristan Auer, Jordane Arrivetz, both incredible designers who I'm sure will give us lots of very interesting food for thought today. Before we get into a little question and answer session, I'm just going to let them both introduce themselves, their backgrounds, milestone projects. So, Jordane, if we start with you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So, my name is Jordane Arrivetz. I'm an interior designer specialized in hospitality, hotel and restaurants. I was graduated from Camondo School in 2009, and I worked in several agencies before working alongside Jean-Louis Coste in an office specialized in hotel and restaurant developments. So at that time, I specialized myself in hospitality concepts and developing that kind of projects. And 5 years ago, I decided to do my own firm, continuing this same story, working on commercial projects. So I learned a lot of things about hotel and restaurant when I was developing concepts for Hotel Cost. So we worked, for example, on Saks Fifth Avenue with L'Avenue in New York, on a new project that opened recently with Cadogan Estates in London. So every time it was creating new concepts and making, some new and unique spaces and new and unique brands for our clients. So when I started my studio, I started working for big groups such as RL Collection, Paris Society, and doing at first small projects and then bigger and bigger projects. So this is one of our first projects. It was Tropezina for RL Collection. It's a restaurant and a beach in Saint-Tropez. We also worked for Le Chalet de Pierre in Courchevel. For Clover Gordes with Jean-François Piège in Gordes. And also more recently for a hotel called La Tartane in Saint-Tropez. So all the projects that we have been developing since the agency exists are very different from one another. So every time we are trying to create some new concepts that make sense in the place that we are, with the building, with the story of the owners, with the story of the environment. Every time we try to make brand new ideas and some spaces that are going to be recognizable by the clients and very unique. So this is more pictures of La Tartane in Saint-Tropez. Also, we have been working on Hotel Nuage, which is an hotel close to Champs-Élysées in Paris. So very with a very soft vibe and very smooth interior design, and then we started working on the project of Bonnie 3 years ago. So when we were approached to do this project, it was a very big project for the agency. It's part of a unique development for a competition that was called Réinventer Paris, where many sites in Paris have been chosen to be rethought by some architects and some designers. And so RDI was doing the Paris hotel on the main building floors, 16 floors. But there were also on the side some housing, some youth hostel, markets, and so it was very interesting and complex program. And so we were called into the two top floors, the 15th and 16th floors, where we had to develop a restaurant, a club, and a bar. So it was very impressive for us because there were already big names involved, such as RDI, David Chipperfield, who was doing the architecture of the building, Olafur Eliasson, who was already working on some artistic interventions on the ceilings of the floors we were going to work on, and also. Paris Society, which is, which was going to be to operate the site. So we didn't have a brief at first. So what our positioning was born by, thinking about who people were already, what was already happening on site with, RDI project and also this building who was designed initially in the mid-60s. And also, this futuristic arts of Olafur Eliasson. So we were pretty much interested in these 60s vibes with the space age and the emancipation of women and all this, soft shapes and very much contrasted design. So this was our first thoughts about the place, and it was our line to lead us throughout all the different spaces. So here we can see, for example, the restaurant where we had this ceiling, this mirror ceiling, was made by Olafur Eliasson. So we designed a lot of furniture with chrome elements to reply with the mirror ceiling, but also a lot of very graphic floor that would be reflected in all the chrome and glass elements. And also we designed a very warm, I think, space because the view is a bit hypnotizing and takes a lot of place in the space. So we had to contrast this with a very warm and homey, interior. So this is the terrace of the restaurant with an impressive view that brings a lot, obviously, to the place, but at the same time. Paris Society asked us that people would come again in the place and not say, okay, we see the view and then it's done like you can do in Tour Montparnasse or when you are in the Eiffel Tower. The idea is to create a place where Parisian people were going to come back again and have a nice moment that would really be part of the Parisian scene in F&B. So this is the lounge that is on the upper floor. Again, we had been designing an interior that would fit also with Olafur Eliasson intervention. That was a kaleidoscope ceiling reflecting the light of the sky. And again, we designed very warm shapes, reminding a bit the 60s area, and we designed all the furniture custom for this project and all the lightings. So it was pretty much interesting, and this is the club, which is at first which was meant to be a conference space and more a day club, and it evolved, and now it's really a nightclub. So it's all with leather paddings and a bit of overall vibe in this place. So for us, it was really interesting to see how much we could decline the idea of the 60s and the idea of this contrast between shiny and soft, warm and cold colors, reflecting, and all this contrast of materials that would be a lead in our different design. So. These are more projects that we have been doing at the time. We have just finished a boat which is close to La Tour Eiffel, which is called the Naughty Club, with also a ballroom and a bar. We have been working on some more interior design spaces. This is a hotel in Bourgogne. This is a hotel in Paris, in the 16th arrondissement. A hotel it's a huge hotel close to Paris, which is going to be a maison de campagne. I don't know how to say. This is a palace in south of France. And this is one of the latest projects. We are working on the project of the Majestic in Cannes, where we are designing the restaurant and the beach project.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Merci.
Tristan, you take over?
Yes, please. Very impressed. I'm Tristan Auer, French interior designer, as you can hear, for sure. I will tell a little bit about myself before you drive the talk about the different projects. Started my career in '96 when being interior designers was not that trendy that it is today. Only few interior designers, big name, was on the market. Now it's totally changed. So I started as interior designers for Christian Liège first, and then Philippe Starck. And then Philippe Starck had the great idea to fire me. He pushed me out, and that was the first chance that I got to create my own studio. I was totally not prepared to do that, but life sometimes decides for you. And step by step, little by little, I grow my studio, my project, my client. I don't have any style. You will notice that. Because I'm doing what I just can do, which is doing project for somebody else. So made to measure, meanings designing on purpose, bespoke. And so I put a lot of myself in projects, but for the sake of building the personality of a project. So going back to this one that you may know, which is Carlton Cannes. And this is the initial first bad sketch that I did. This is one of my latest projects, and thanks to her, I received 4 awards for that, and thanks a lot. So starting by the end, the image right in the middle, it's pretty important because this is how I get the project. There were a competition, and I showed just one image. I just say 2 sentences, and that was it. So sometimes it's less is more. So this is an iconic project, very important for everybody because it belongs to everybody. It belongs to the world, belongs to Cannes for sure, and not to myself. So I had to put my feet into the sensibility, emotions of all the different clients who went there. We had wonderful memories, and I'm responsible of that, to keep this memory, the integrity of this memory, and then to build other one. So my job is to create emotion, to create dreams. And when I work for a hotel, that makes sense. So we started from scratch because this hotel, which is from 1913, needed a very heavy renovation, so we have to redo everything. It was closed during 2 years. I worked on it during 7 years, pretty important part of my life. To try to not reinvent, not to do a revolution, but just an evolution, smoothly. There is one part which is the old lady, as we defined it, which is an old building, and 2 new wings. It's yes, it's a lot of square meters. I forget exactly how much it was, but it's a big one. And big responsibility. And we try so to renovate areas which needs to, exactly in the feeling and the flair of the Belle Époque. And then we try to reinvent smoothly and connected the other areas. It's just talking about the impact and the challenge that I need to face. It's 500 million euros invested by the owner on it, so you don't have any other chance that to succeed and to do something which is at the end important. So in the bedrooms, because the view is stunning, because there is almost nothing to say, but just to look at, just to feel the breeze of the French Riviera coming in. I went into very minimalistic details and design, but influenced by some elements which are totally from the regions, some wicker, some ceramics, some glass from Biot, which is nearby. So, and this is pretty interesting to, when you have a project like that, to try to see what are the characteristics of the place, of the building first, of the region, and what do people expect to have, to feel, to discover when they come and live few moments, few days in this place. You've seen the bedrooms. There is yes. Now we went to another project, which is as much important as this one because it was in 2017. It's Hôtel de Crillon in Paris. It's a palace operated by Rosewood, and again we spent like 5 years. It's very long. Surprisingly, it's very, very long because there is a very high level of details. Everything again is detailed. Is bespoke, is made to measure. We never picked, I'm sorry to say that, anything on the shop or on the shelf or at Maison&Objet. But we design everything because we have the wonderful manufacturer in France, artisans, which are able to do that. And we want to do something which is totally different from other areas. It's a palace, it has to be the number one. So that takes time. This is a new restaurant that was lifted up a little bit because the new chef came, Paul Perret, and we did a pastry as well. Public spaces. It's for whom never been there. It's a very boring building because it's very, very, very long. It's one corridor, so you have to take the attention of your guest, interested through the different rooms. And I've got a sort of a vision which is more close to cinematical vision, building a place on emotion through sequences. So instantly when you arrive, you have the first room tells you something. Then it's more energetic. Then it's more smooth. Then it's a place where you can go with your lover. Then with your friend, with your family, and so on. So it's a place where you can live different life, different emotions within the same building. And to finish, a retail shop, Joseph Duclos, in Paris. And it was an interesting exercise because it's a new brand. It's from the 17th century, but relaunched now. And we have to reinvent what is, they are selling bags. So what is Maroquinerie in France by today? What are the DNA of it? And how we can express that for foreigners people. So few projects. My studio today, it's pretty large, growing faster and faster. We are 45. Working on 16 hotels today for 10 different brands, which is something which is interesting as well because, as I said, I don't promote myself or design for myself. I'm not very interested in myself, but more designing for somebody else and for a real purpose. And we are doing private residences, we are doing restaurants, we are doing transportation with cars, airplanes, trains. So it's very large, worldwide, and it's why I need to have a good team, a very good team. Some of them are here today. And a good things, important things, you never achieve it alone. You have to be supported by the right persons.
Very wise words. Thank you. Thank you both for that intro. Right, so we are going to start our little discussion off back at the beginning. So we're going to backtrack to the very start of your design processes. I'm going to ask this to both of you. When you start to work on a hotel project, and I know, Tristan, you said, it's not about you, it's about the client, for instance, where do you start? Big question.
Big questions. I have no real talent.
Controversial.
Totally. But true. I have to work hard. I have to find, to listen to people first and to find a story, and then to start to build a story for the place, for the sake of it's a business as well. So it's not only building a story and people will come and say, "Oh, that's nice," and leave, and no, they have to stay as well. So I always started by interviewing the client, the previous client. I like to do that because, to tell the truth, in Carlton, I've never been before. It's not my I never spent my holiday in Carlton during 2 months in summertime, you know. And so I have to be fed by somebody on real human emotion first, and then get inspired. So I open myself to every emotions, and I have no fear about that. And if we remember the images, it was few leaves of eucalyptus with different shades of color. So I was walking in Saint-Paul-de-Vence nearby at Fondation-Bag, which is a very nice place. And I've seen on the floor some leaves like that. I took it, put it in my pocket, and that was the start of my inspiration for this hotel. So there is a key, never be close to any new story or any emotions. So have a look, go and see, and things will arrive organically. So, and learning about the story through the story for sure, not to do like any mistakes, historical mistakes. But it happens maybe by magic,
I like that.
in a trance.
I'm very interested can we just dig just a little bit deeper into these leaves that you picked up? What were they kind of symbolizing? What was that?
It was light, the smell was very important, and we give sometimes too much to aesthetic, and not, and we should have like the echo and the importance of the other one. So the smell, when you touch it, it cracks a little bit, and the shades of color was exactly what's needed for the Carlton. And I took all of them, I registered it because then it turns brown when it was still fresh. And it's very feminine. You know, Carlton for me, it's a woman. It's an old woman. And it's a beautiful old woman that needs to be redressed and nice makeup and nice perfume. So I saw everything through those few leaves.
Amazing. Let's turn to you now, Jordane. How does your design approach compare? So when you're starting out with a project, are you kind of equally as mixed in with the emotions, with the personal? Tell us.
Yeah, I guess we have, I think, to develop a new concept, and the storytelling is very important in hospitality projects. So we spend a lot of time digging into the story of the place. We try to find some antique pictures. We start to really understand how it's what has appeared in this project before, like design, colors, what happened there. So sometimes it's very rich. For example, when we work in Majestic in Cannes, obviously it has appeared in the early 20th century, so that we can find a lot of pictures and a lot has happened here. But sometimes we work on hotels or places where there is no story before. So when there's no story before, you need to speak with the owners, or you need to get inspired by something else. It can be, you know, the geographical environment, the owners. You need to find a story that will lead the design through the project. Because I feel that if all your design is anchored in something that is that in a strong story, then everything will make sense, and the choice that you will make will all be linked to an idea. Whereas if you make only choices by aesthetic, with an aesthetic idea, with the actual trends of what you see in the magazines or everything else, obviously it will fade away much faster than if all your choices have a meaning and a sense.
That's interesting that you bring up trends, and I'm intrigued to hear how both of you kind of respond to that. So do you turn away from trends? Do you kind of shun them? Do you lean into them a little bit? Or what's your relationship there?
I think that you cannot be blind to trends, but at the same time, so when we start working on some project, it will take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years before it pops out. So you cannot do things because it's trendy now, because in 5 years it will be over. So on my side, I try not to be very much. I see what's happening, obviously, but I try not to follow the trends, because most of the time it has nothing to do with the project that you are doing, and we are trying to think that our projects will go pursue, have a long life into time. If you see, for example, a hotel Coste, it has been designed by Jacques Garcia 30 years ago, and it's still like one of the coolest places in Paris. So I think that is also because it's timeless in a way.
And what about you, Tristan?
You should know that I've got a very bad memory. So trends, and I don't read, I don't look at magazines. I'm like a sort of guys.
You're just isolated.
Yes, totally. So I need to find inspiration somewhere else. And so I never reproduce any project that I've done, because I forget it instantly. I prefer to see in the front. And as you said, so we're not doing trendy projects which are not trendy in 5 years' time. So, and there is sustainability as well behind that. So we have to design for the next 30 years and not for the next 5 years.
Interesting. And how did you... So when you were working at the Carlton, for example, let's focus in on that, navigating this fusion of old and new. So you have this very, very old building and you're coming in and putting a kind of new spin on it. How much of the original kind of design story are you maintaining? How much are you drawing on the history on what already was? How much is kind of a new touch that you're putting in? How do you balance that old and new?
So I think I started with the old-fashioned way of living in French Riviera, and then I developed it into, I wouldn't say a modern way of living, definitely, because we don't live the same way that we live 100 years. But so in fact, of the size of the use, we don't need it to have any table, any desk today. But I try to develop it smoothly to something which is in phase aesthetically with something which is from before, and but much more simple and always elegant. Elegance, chicness, and doesn't fade, doesn't pass. So try to keep that.
And especially with a hotel that's kind of been in existence for as long as something like the Carlton has, to kind of maintain that timelessness is quite a big challenge, I imagine. I'm also curious to hear about, so with these historic buildings that you're both working with, I imagine there's quite a few kind of regulations and restrictions. At the Carlton, were you kind of quite limited in terms of, did the history of the building hold you back at all, or were you quite free?
No, we are never free, because and constraint, it's how you... It's serving art, always. But it's much more to see that at advisor. People we know from historical monument, they tell us what should be done, and then there is nothing to gain fighting them, but just feeding you to. So no, it was pretty good, very interesting, and especially with the artisans. We came then, they do probes. And we've seen like 7 or 8 or 9 different layers of paint, and we picked the right one. And by chance, it was exactly my eucalyptus leaves that I selected initially. Yes, without knowing, because it was totally white. When I get it, it was all pure white.
Amazing. What about you, Jordane? How have you found navigating the history? So if we think about your work at La Majestic so far, have there been any restrictions at all in terms of the history, or have you felt quite free there?
Not with the history, but we are in Cannes. There are a lot of restrictions on the design. So, for example, I think it was the same with you. We couldn't use some stripes on the parasol, or so we need to answer to a lot of constraints every time. But anyway, as Tristan says, it's every project is a team project. So it's working with the engineers, with the financial people, with the commercial and marketing team of the landlord, with the historical building in the area. So everything, every time it's sharing and learning from the others, and this is what makes also the process interesting.
Now, on that note, thinking about the kind of the bigger team behind a hotel project, let's turn back to Paris for a second. Your work at Bonny. There were, like you said, a lot of big names involved in that project, and your agency, if you don't mind me saying, is a relatively newer one, right? So I wonder how you felt kind of coming in and making your mark, and how did you navigate that?
Panic first. No, it was a big project for us, and all the big names on the table were very impressive. So we wondered like how we would exist in such a project. We thought that when it will open, nobody would even see our spaces. Like we would be erased by everybody else on the project. So at the same time, we always, start very humbly and see what are the others doing and how we can get inspired. But also we need, to make something that stands out and be a bit bolder in our project. So we're trying to find something that would be really ourselves and really says what we had in mind for the project. And luckily, we had carte blanche for this project, so we were pretty much able to go pretty freely in our project and design a lot of things. As I said before, we designed all the furniture and all the lights, and we had also the budget to do it. So it was a huge chance. But until it opened last year, we couldn't imagine how people would receive it and what would people think about it. So
and now it's always booked up. So you must have done something right. I'm really interested in this carte blanche that you said you had. I wonder, as a designer, how it is to kind of be told, you have free reign. How do you navigate that in terms of how do you focus in? So you did talk a little bit about the kind of 60s, 70s inspirations there, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you decided on that kind of design story?
So as I said, it was we started on the 60s with this idea of the 60s. So we did a lot of research of the design at that moment. Like I bought hundreds of books about it and see what could be used from this period and also even not only about design, but I was speaking before about the space age, the emancipation of women. It was very rich area. So what can we learn from it? What can be used? But also we are never doing we are not doing a cinema reconstitution. So we don't have to be too much authentic in our design. We can mix periods and being inspired also by the 80s or the 70s and mix everything, And also this is what's interesting. It's to create some new design, some new shapes, inspired freely, but with and reinterpret it.
And when it comes to making a mark, making a new icon, like we're talking about today, in a city like Paris, which arguably is full of icons everywhere, let's turn back to you, Tristan, because you have worked on multiple hotels across the city, how do you make your design stand out? Now, I know you said that you don't have a kind of signature style, so there's nothing that you do that's kind of your stamp, as you say. But what is it? What's your trick?
First, to do an icon, nobody decides to do an icon. It's the guest, which by chance it happens to be an icon. So, and I think we should never forget that nobody will come back just for the decoration, just for the look. But if it's good, if the service is good, and people go there, it's like a decor to leave some emotion, to leave some nice story. And if people get anchored in this area and live wonderful stories, they will come back for this story, not for the decor. So an icon is a combination of many, many different things. And chances, definitely the owner, the operators helps to go in and to do this success. But I think it should bring some freshness, modernity, and new ideas first. So as we said, so no following the trend, and taking some risk, finding and inventing some new ideas. For instance, the Seine Hotel in Paris, it's based on that. And have fun, definitely have fun. So for me, the talent is desire. When you desire something, suddenly you can get and build something which is very interesting. So you go and find the right references, you watch the right movie, you hear the right music as well, and then build your own and very deep and strong concept. If I may say, I don't like the word concept, but
that's okay.
Yeah,
it works. So you mentioned the guest experience there, and obviously in hospitality, the guest is in many ways at the centre of everything that you're doing, right? A hotel becomes iconic because its guests love it.
Yeah.
When you're reinventing an iconic hotel like we're talking about today, how do you strike this balance between designing for the loyal, long-time guests and then also presumably wanting to bring in new guests? Is that a tricky one?
It's tricky because normally you design for the new one and the old one goes in it without being affected.
Okay.
It's funny to see how people remember things, remember places. They're more remembering emotions than real places. Mm. And yes, I don't think we lose any old clients if we are right. The good thing is to be right on a project. Mm. So not over trendy, not for these people, not those one.
Difficult balance to strike. So many different considerations, no?
It's a difficult job that we are doing, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because we have to manage with aesthetic, budget, ego, and everything. But at the end, yes, it's.
What about you, Jordane? Then, what can you, in terms of catering for the guests, for old guests, new guests, something in between?
So. For example, when we work for La Tartane in Saint-Tropez, we knew that some guest has been coming like every summer for 1 month for like sometimes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So they have, when these guests, they know that we are going to change the place, they panic a lot and they're like, don't change anything, we love it. But you say, yeah, but it's not so good actually right now. So we need to do something. Yeah. And so one of the best comments that we had after this project is from some old guests that said that everything was they loved everything. It was brand new, but we had kept, the vibe and the spirit of the place that they were coming for before, and that was still there. So I think this is what we intend to do. It's make a new place, but also keep the essence of the original place.
Okay, and I wonder how that compares then in terms of the size of the hotel. So La Tartane is a relatively smaller hotel. It has about 27 rooms.
27 rooms. Yeah.
And then you compare that to something like Le Majestic. When you're designing on these kind of different scales, a small boutique for hotel versus kind of a big a hotel that's part of like a bigger chain across the globe, what kind of differences do you have there in terms of when you're creating your design? Are there different considerations that you have to take into account?
Yeah, sure, because when we are doing La Tartane, for example, I think I hanged myself some of the artworks in the bedrooms and choose the pillows myself on each room. Whereas obviously when you are doing a huge project with 100 rooms, you design a pattern that will be replicated in some of the rooms. So. Yeah. Obviously, but every time we try to give as much energy and as much love that we can, but it's not totally the same process, and also the team is bigger when you are doing a huge project on the client's team, your team. So it's not exactly the same working process for sure.
Yeah, and which do you prefer? out of curiosity?
I don't know. I like to have both, and all our projects are very different. You know, when we are working in La Tartane or in a project in Paris or a restaurant in Dubai, obviously it's everything. Every project is very different from each other. It's not the same concept. It's not the same working process. So it's nice to have all of them, because then we are never bored, and we are always, bringing more ideas and reinventing ourselves too.
Yeah, definitely. And thinking about that variety, Tristan, you can probably speak to this. I know you have a few kind of exciting projects on the boards at the moment. You mentioned, for example, you're working in Saudi Arabia, is that right?
Yes, as well, yes, for 2 projects.
Tell us a little bit then about the differences across the globe. When it comes to creating an icon, I know you say it's not something that you kind of set out to do necessarily, but how do those different countries compare, for example?
It's more that what guests and people traveling are looking for. They want to have a sense of place, for sure. So we need to study all the different education and inspiration and of the place, to then put it in a new way into the place. So this is very interesting. And after now, it's the approach. It's pretty similar when you do a small project or a big project. It's to be humble first, and to definitely to give the best, and to be as much creative as possible. And then the team is different. That's it. Yeah.
What can you tell us? Can you give us any more sneak peeks? I know you're working with Mandarin Oriental at the moment. Is that right, for instance?
Yes, we're doing 4 Mandarin Orientals. The one in Zurich just opened.
Oh, okay.
Yes, 21 days before.
Okay.
31 days before.
Okay.
And we're doing one in China, one in Miami.
Oh, wow.
Maybe the one in Paris.
Gosh,
so it's a nice brand, and we're working with many other brands which are as interested as well. In Dubai, in London, in US.
Very exciting.
Yeah,
what about you, Jordane? What do you have coming up? Anything you can kind of give us a sneak peek about? Other than Le Majestic, of course.
I showed a few sneak peeks before, but we are working on many hotel projects, mostly in France. Also, in Dubai and Switzerland, and also some restaurant projects in Paris.
Very exciting.
There is no crisis for interior design today. Definitely.
Phew. We're in the clear. Right. I think maybe we'll just turn to the audience, see if anyone has any questions, anything you'd like to bring up. We've covered everything.
Perfectly. Thank you.
All done. Okay. I think we're going to round off there then. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for my panelists.
Thank you.